friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist!" exclamation point, "Catch!" exclamation point. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO."
New information emerging in the investigation of Charlie Kirk's assassin. This as the accused killer is making his first appearance in court. And we're counting down to the Harrow's hearing. The parents accused of killing their 7-month-old baby are back in court this week. The question still looming, will police locate baby Emmanuel? Also this hour, the Menendez brothers, we're hearing them for the first time as the audio of the convicted siblings' recent parole hearings has now been made public. Plus, does the ring mean a thing? We're breaking down the optics of the defendant in the pregnant mistress murder trial. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Tuesday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Are you ready for some coffee and some court? That's what I like to say the show's all about. We get you all warmed up and ready to go for the big court day ahead. We got a great show planned, so let's get started. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. Today we get one step closer. We are one step away from complete justice for Crystal Rogers. As tomorrow, her boyfriend Brooks Houck and his buddy Joseph Lawson will be sentenced for their roles in her murder and her disappearance. The jury recommended that the judge sentence them both to the maximum allowable punishments. For Houck, who was convicted of murder and tampering with evidence, it's life in prison. For Lawson, who is convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with evidence, it's 25 years. I sure hope the judge follows the jury's recommendations. And I hope that 2 other things happen next. Number 1, I hope somebody's charged for Tommy Ballard's murder. That's Crystal's father. He was murdered while he was searching for her killer. And you know, I've always wondered if Tommy Ballard was killed because he was getting close to exposing the truth of what happened to Crystal. And number 2, I hope that Crystal's mom, Sherry Ballard, and Crystal's 5 children find some measure of comfort and peace with the sentences that will be imposed tomorrow. You know, this was a long, as you know, my friend, a very long fight for justice for her. And may her family know that even though the case is closing, the beloved mother, daughter, sister, and friend will not be forgotten. And hopefully, justice for Crystal Rogers' father, Tommy Ballard, is what comes next. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Based on your autopsy as well as your review of Ms. Wise's medical records, is there any indication that this was anything other than a healthy baby boy?
No.
This was a healthy baby boy.
Yes.
In Florida, we've got testimony resuming in the pregnant mistress murder trial for defendant Jose Soto-Escalera. Court's going to begin at 9 a.m. Eastern. Also in Florida, we've got jury deliberations beginning in the murder trial of Sonny Bell. Court's going to resume at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Sonny, the beautiful little 4-year-old who was shot and killed in a drive-by shooting. And we have defendant Alexis Yates expected to be sentenced this morning in Florida. She accepted a plea deal after being accused of raping her 15-year-old stepson. That hearing is expected to get underway any minute now. We will keep you posted on all of these stories. Right now, though, let's turn to your top story this morning as the man who's accused of murdering conservative political activist Charlie Kirk is expected to make his first court appearance today. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson will be formally charged today by the district attorney's office. This as some new details are emerging in the case investigation. FBI Director Kash Patel shared the new physical evidence that the FBI has gathered in the case against Robinson. He shared this on Fox News. Let's watch.
There was evidence, DNA evidence that could be collected and had been collected, including a screwdriver that was found on the rooftop. Also, we went over to the scene in the wooded area where the firearm was discarded, and the firearm had a towel wrapped around it. It's important. I'll get back to that later. And I can report today that the DNA hits from the towel that was wrapped around the firearm and the DNA on the screwdriver are positively processed for the suspect in custody.
Kash Patel also mentioned that Robinson suggested before the shooting that he was going to kill Charlie Kirk in a text message exchange and in a written note as well. According to the Washington Post, Robinson also confessed to the killing in a small group chat on the online platform Discord. So with these new details coming to light, what can we expect to happen today? Let's bring in our guests. With me, let me just start over because what I'm reading is inaccurate. Former prosecuting attorney and the professor who's in charge of the prosecution projects at Florida International University, Melba Pearson, is with us. And want to welcome to the show a brand new guest. I met him recently at CrimeCon, had that pleasure. He is retired from serving with the NYPD, has a podcast, the Gold Shields Show, because they carry shields. The New York City Police Department. Tom Smith is with us as well. Great to have you both on the show on this. Tom, I want to begin with you with the investigation. Let's start there, then we're going to turn to the court day ahead. So in terms of what's happening right now, there was news yesterday that was big about some new DNA evidence being gathered. What does this do for the case, please?
Well, you have to go back because the prosecution of this case begins right at the crime scene. So FBI agents and local law enforcement started the prosecution of this case immediately with gathering information, gathering DNA, and all the evidentiary stuff that is going to go into this prosecution immediately. So you kind of had a two-pronged thing going on with law enforcement. You had the gathering of information and evidence to lead to the prosecution, and then continuing the investigation to make sure that every base is covered. Everyone's interviewed and every lead is covered, which they still are doing right now. Just because you arrested someone doesn't mean the investigation stops. So that part is continuing as long as there's information out there to be covered.
Tom, thank you for that. Let's listen to a little bit more from Kash Patel about the written note left behind.
The suspect wrote a note saying, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. That note was written before the shooting. Evidence of its existence, we now have learned, existed before the shooting, was in the location in the suspect and partner's home. But we have since learned that the note, even though it has been destroyed, we have found forensic evidence of the note, and we have confirmed what that note says because of our aggressive interview posture at the FBI.
Wow. Okay, Tom, your reaction to that, this note and it being destroyed, but they apparently have the contents of it. How does this work out?
Yeah, that's technology today in law enforcement. That's a big difference than, when I started. And they take advantage of it. They use the technology that's available to them today to continue investigations. And every piece of evidence they gathered, and even in the past and are still gathering, are so vital to this because it just sets up a timeline. It sets up the motive of what took place with this murder.
Right. Tom, thank you for that. Melba, I want to turn to you about the legal aspects of this, what we're going to be seeing today. We understand the district attorney's office is going to formally charge him. And so go into professor mode for us, please, Melba, if you would, because we know the police already charged him. He's being held on charges. So explain what is the formality today?
Of course. So good morning, Julie and Tom. And so what is about to happen today is the arraignment process. This is the first real appearance where the defendant, Tyler Robinson, will be in front of the judge. The judge will inform him of the charges that are against him. And of course, we know what he was arrested for. The prosecutor does have the option to increase those charges or change them altogether. At this juncture, since it's aggravated murder, he's charged with a firearm charge as well as obstruction of justice. because I don't necessarily see any wavering or deviation from what the police arrested him for versus what the prosecutors are going to be putting on their charging document today. And so the judge will inform the defendant of the charges, make sure that he understands, and then at that juncture, he's going to have the option of pleading guilty or not guilty. I expect that he will plead not guilty. That is a matter of course. That plea may change over the course of the next months and year or so that this case will be pending. But at this juncture, he is going to probably plead not guilty. And then, of course, the defense will be requesting discovery, which would be the process of, hey, prosecution, what evidence do you have against my client? Especially this very interesting last bit from the FBI director about a note that existed but doesn't exist but exists, but they interviewed somebody too. Anyway, I'm thinking if it's more along the lines of they interviewed someone and got the content, that made sense, but I don't know, his comments were a little contradictory to me. But be that as it may, the defense will be seeking to learn what evidence the prosecution will be using in this case. This is a long-term process because, again, like Tom said, arrest is not the end. The investigation continues. Additional information can come to light. So all of these things start the long process towards trial or plea, whatever the resolution may be.
Exactly. Melba, thank you. The other thing I want to ask you about, of course, is how soon will we learn about whether the state is seeking the death penalty? We have some comments from Utah's governor. Let's take a listen now.
More than anything, we are going to catch this person. Last thing I will just say is we've been working with our attorneys, getting everything that we need, affidavits ready, so that we can pursue the death penalty in this case, and that will happen here in the state of Utah.
Okay, Melba, would today be too soon to see that notice of intent filed? What are your thoughts?
It's not too soon. I would not be surprised if that's filed today because as a matter of course, again, former prosecutor, have done these cases, you want to file that as soon as possible because, again, that takes the entire trajectory of the case in a different direction. And again, that means defense has to do certain things in terms of mitigation and experts. Prosecution may want to get certain experts in place. And of course, you want to let the court know that this is going to be a death penalty case so they can guide themselves accordingly. So I would not be surprised if it's filed today. If it's not, I would say sometime within the next month. They're not going to wait very long on this.
I'm in agreement with you, Mel, but yeah, especially with the high-profile nature of this. In Utah law, apparently 60 days from the time of the charging, so that clock would begin today. Thank you for all of that. Detective Tom Smith, let me go back to you. Take us into your world, please. So while this court day is going to get underway for this defendant today, the detectives haven't stopped working this case. Would you kind of walk us through some of the things that you think they're doing right now at this juncture?
Excuse me. Yes, they're following every lead that has come in over the last few weeks. Everything has to be covered because you don't know where an investigation is going to lead. There may be that magical witness that pops up that all they did was make a phone call a week ago. You know, so all the leads have to be run down to the ground, and that's what they're doing. On top of working with the DA's office and ensuring that everything was done correctly. That's why, you know, detectives and prosecutors work so well together. Everything has to be done the right way, from interviews to statements, collection of evidence, chain of custody. All of that has to be making sure in these days coming up that that was all done the right way, because you don't want any mistakes. You don't want any surprises coming forward when the prosecution and the trials and hearings all start.
Exactly. You make a great point, working in conjunction behind the scenes early on to avert any missteps or mistakes and make sure all the charges are properly filed and all the evidence needed is gathered. Detective Tom Smith, it's been such a pleasure having you. I hope you'll come back on opening statements again soon. Thank you so much. Melba Pearson staying with us for the hour, hoping you're doing the same at home. You can get some more coffee. Here's what's next on opening statements.
How has this case impacted the community?
It's really sad. Everyone's mad. Like, you could, if you didn't want him, but you could have just gave him to someone who did.
She makes a great point. We're talking about the baby Emmanuel case, as his parents are due back in court today and tomorrow. So what will we learn as this investigation rolls on, and will that baby ever be found? Plus, new audio released of the Menendez brothers. Remember the recent parole hearings? Well, we're going to get to hear what they said to the parole board coming up. Young mother found brutally murdered.
Now the victim's boyfriend, a married father of 4,
is charged for the murder of his alleged mistress and her unborn child.
The pregnant mistress murder trial. Live coverage today, only on Court TV.
We're taking you inside the investigations of the country's biggest cases. Join us each morning as we dig deeper into what's trending in true crime.
Opening statements with Julie Grant. Mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Welcome back. Now for what's trending in true crime. The parents of baby Emmanuel Harrow are expected to be in court tomorrow. They're charged with the murder of their 7-month-old son. Jake and Rebecca Harrow were arrested at their home after police searched their house as well as their vehicles. Little baby Emmanuel has been missing since mid-August. Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson gives us a preview of the hearing set for tomorrow.
Julie, good morning. Parents of missing baby Emmanuel set to be in a California courtroom this week as the search for the baby enters week 5. On Wednesday, both Jake and Rebecca Harrow are expected to be back in court for a preliminary hearing. The couple is accused of killing their 7-month-old baby Emmanuel and filing a false police report. On August 14th, the couple reported the baby abducted from a Big 5 sporting goods parking lot in Yucaipa, California. A week later, the couple was arrested at their home in Cabazon.
The filing in this case reflects our belief that baby Emmanuel was abused, a victim of child abuse over time, and that eventually, because of that abuse, he succumbed to those injuries.
Since the Harrows' arrest, a memorial for the baby has been growing, and so have the crowds 40 miles away outside the courthouse in Riverside, California.
I'm here, just like the rest of these ladies, hon. We're here to get justice. We're here to speak for Emmanuel because he wasn't able to speak for himself. So we're here, and we have his back, and we're ready to go. We're ready to fight. We're going to fight tooth and nail. We're going to get justice for Emmanuel.
Jake and Rebecca Harrow have pleaded not guilty, both being held on $1 million bail. That's the very latest. I'll send it back to you.
All right, our thanks to Matt Johnson for that report. There is a felony settlement conference set to happen today, and then the preliminary hearing tomorrow. Let's talk about these things and what we can expect to happen. Let's bring in 2 attorneys who both have served as prosecutors, Melba Pearson and Randolph Rice. Great to have you both on this. So recognize this is happening in California. They've set the felony settlement conference hearing for today. Then tomorrow is the preliminary hearing. And so wondering if the word settlement indicates anything, if this is standard, if we think there may be something offered at this time. Randolph, your thoughts on what may occur today, please.
Well, just the name by itself, settlement, leads most of us to believe that maybe they're trying to work out a plea deal, and that may be what the prosecution is thinking, and maybe the defense is also thinking, hey, look, if we get this thing done early, remember, sometimes there's a benefit to doing it early, meaning the plea deal early. There's a benefit to the defendant, so maybe they're thinking, hey, we could get a better deal if we take a plea now rather than down the road. Right,
Randolph. Yeah, I was speaking with my team earlier this morning and saying, look, not having practiced in California, every state is different, as we know. I know at one point in time when I served as a prosecutor, I had a job of offering early disposition pleas to certain types of cases, not homicide cases, but other types of cases that we really wouldn't want to send up to criminal court from the magistrate court. We want to try to have a resolution before they go. So I'm wondering if this could be that purpose, or if this may just be standard in California. Melba, what do you think?
Yeah, having not practiced in California, I have the same question, Julie.
Yeah.
Again, based on the name of it, it could be a way of being, listen, what is the plea at this juncture? Is there a plea? And where is the defense stance on this? And if there's no settlement today, then it moves forward tomorrow. That, again, is based on the context. That's what it seems like to me. And that would be normal because, again, like Randolph said, if there is a way to not use resources and kind of move down the path when both sides know that this is going to be a plea, it's definitely in both sides' interest to make sure that the case is resolved sooner rather than later, especially in terms of people testifying, other folks that may have information and this might be painful for them to have to talk about, so there could be a number of reasons why the case would want to be resolved sooner rather than later.
Right, Melba. And even if there isn't a resolution, and on this case, I think it might be hard to expect something resolved with a baby still missing and 2 defendants here. Maybe at least there are going to be indications of whether there's going to be a prelim tomorrow or whether they want to waive their right to have this hearing. So thinking about that, Randolph, tomorrow we've got these 2 defendants, both scheduled, same prelim. Let's just say nothing happens today. Let's just say, hey, look, there's no resolution. We're moving on forward. What do you expect tomorrow in terms of the evidence, the witnesses called, what prosecutors will have to establish?
Yeah, Julie, that's a great point and a great question, because that's what the state's really worried about is, can they get enough evidence in to meet that probable cause standard, which is obviously a lot lower standard than when they go to trial. But I think a couple key points that we heard from Matt Johnson's report was, one is the video from that parking lot, and then the searches of the homes. I'm assuming there's going to be DNA. That will be very helpful to the prosecution.
Thanks, Randolph. Yes, appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about the other aspect to this. Baby Emmanuel, still missing. Investigators are saying they've got a strong indication of where his remains are. They are committed to not stopping their search efforts. Take a listen.
There is absolutely nothing, no crime more important than the injury of a human being, particularly a child. And the amount of resources that were expended to find this baby and to ultimately bring the people to justice responsible for the loss of this baby, I can't even tell you the amount of resources that were expended in this.
So if the unthinkable happens and they don't find little baby Emmanuel, how will that impact things at trial? Melba, would you speak to that, please?
Well, it doesn't stop the process. One thing that makes it more difficult is that if there's no body, sadly, it just makes the case a little bit more difficult in terms of trying to determine how the baby passed away, the cause of death. Is this actually a homicide, or was it an accidental death, or was it natural causes, those types of things. So it's going to make it tougher for the prosecution to be able to prove this case, but it's not insurmountable. There has been a history of prosecutors very successfully prosecuting cases without a physical body. So as long as there's enough circumstantial evidence or other evidence in terms of, let's say, like the video from the parking lot, other things that the prosecution can use to point to, these were the last people to see the baby alive, and it's only logical, based on the evidence, that they were the reason why this baby's no longer with us, then the prosecution can move forward.
Melba, thank you so much for that. Randolph, let me go to you on the attorney that we know of representing Rebecca Harrow, attorney Jeff Moore, who defended the Turpins. That name may ring familiar to many of our true crime and trial watchers. Their teenage daughter had escaped their house, called police, reported that she and her siblings had suffered years of child abuse. That attorney, apparently, who represented them, is representing Rebecca Harrow. We don't know who is representing Jake Harrow yet. We're still waiting to see. But the idea of the importance of different attorneys, Randolph, would you speak to that, especially in a case like this one where the alleged conduct may be different?
Yeah, Julie, and that's a great point, because you really have got to have two separate lawyers here. You can't have the same lawyer representing both of these people unless they waive that conflict. But the conflict is going to be probably each one pointing the finger at the other one, saying, it wasn't me, it was her, or vice versa. And so you want to have somebody that's arguing for you, because if the same lawyer's saying, it wasn't me, it was the other person, then there's a conflict of interest, and you can't do that.
Exactly. Boy, thank you both. Really helpful insight and analysis you're sharing. This is a big week in this case. Today, one hearing, tomorrow, another for this couple accused of killing their baby. Melba Pearson, Randolph Rice, stand by kindly, please. We'll hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next on Opening Statements.
I didn't see it as abuse, really. I just saw it as something special between my mother and I. And so I don't like to talk about it that way.
Okay. My purpose in getting the guns was to protect myself in case my father or my mother came at me to kill me, or my father came in the room to rape me. That is why I bought the guns.
We just heard audio from Lyle and Erik Menendez facing the California Parole Board for the first time. This morning, we're spotlighting what they said. And what does the jury see in the pregnant mistress murder trial? We're breaking down the optics in the courtroom with a psychologist.
Because she was out of control. My dad had been molesting me.
The key issue of exhibiting insight, full insight into their crimes, and completely accepting responsibility for their actions. This is where the Menendezes, like Sirhan, also fall short.
This morning, our spotlight shines on the case of Erik and Lyle Menendez. His audio from their first attempt at parole is being released. You'll remember back in August, the convicted killers were denied parole by the California Parole Board in order to remain in prison. Both of them will be eligible for conditional release, meaning they can go again in front of the board in 3 years from now. Cameras were not permitted to film those hearings, or else we surely would have for you here at Court TV. But now we have the audio being released. And in the portion you're about to hear, Lyle describes what he calls pain training sessions that he says he would perform on his brother Erik, which he claims started with his father.
These sort of what I call object sessions, when he started using objects on me, kind of in between when it started, like 7. I don't know why I did it. I just couldn't, I think I was trying to just release it from me.
You wrote about it being sexual, right?
Yeah, I think they might be confusing my father forcing me to inflict pain on Erik with that. But I don't think it was anything, I don't think it was painful.
Let's bring in someone who knows the case very well. She's with the Associated Press. We're so pleased to have on the program today journalist Jamie Ding. Jamie, great to see you this morning. Thank you for waking up early for us, as we know that you work for the Associated Press and you're based in California. So appreciate you coming on early to talk about this case that you've covered for so long. So tell us, please, what are the people that are closest to Lyle and Erik Menendez saying about the realistic chances of these guys ever seeing the light of day?
Yeah, Julie, thanks for having me. So the family, they were obviously very disappointed. It was 2 very long days of parole hearings, and they were so hopeful, and they showed up and they spoke on behalf of the brothers, but ultimately, of course, parole was denied. I do think they are still hopeful that a 3-year denial is considered sort of the lowest tier of denial for a parole hearing. And what happens is that many people are actually eligible for administrative review after a year, and they could actually get in front of a parole board again as soon as 18 months rather than waiting for 3 years. So they're still hopeful, and of course still exploring other options as well.
Oh, that's fascinating. I think a lot of people don't know that, Jamie. Thank you for that. Tell me, we are very aware of the Menendez mania, so to speak, that has been going on in America since there was renewed interest with their case from some television that was created. Tell me, since the parole board's decision to keep these guys in, how would you say that's affected the public momentum?
I think people were definitely disappointed. They have a lot of fans on social media. Fans have been showing up to the court hearings here in Los Angeles. They've been showing up to rallies. So there's definitely this air of, this was unfair, and they still a lot of strong support. But I think, people are just sort of standing by and waiting to see what happens. I don't know if you have been following, but there's, this other option that they are pursuing called the habeas corpus petition, where they are asking a judge to look at new evidence in their case. So that's still an open pathway that could be pursued. And so I think there's still a lot of interesting things happening that fans are following.
Right, most definitely. That's still pending, and it is one thing that we've been reporting on at Court TV, but thank you for the reminder on, Jamie. And then also Governor Newsom. We haven't really heard anything from him, have we? As we know, that was yet perhaps another pathway for the Menendez brothers. Has he said anything since the denial?
I don't believe Newsom has spoken out since the denial. Throughout this whole process, he really has shown a real reluctance to sort of, weigh in on the issue. I think he really wants it to kind of go through the process, having the parole board really thoroughly vet the brothers. They asked Newsom for clemency, and he was very much like, I'm going to wait until the DA has a say. I'm going to wait until the parole board has a say, and then I'll make my move. And he's really emphasized just the importance of public safety and making sure the brothers are not a threat to the public.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, you're right. He's kind of taken the wait-and-see approach, and we'll see if they go at him for some relief in the future. Who knows? Jamie Ding with the Associated Press. Keep up the great reporting. Thank you so much for making time to come on the show today.
Great. Thanks so much, Julie.
Take good care. And let's continue the conversation and listen to some more of those audio clips from the parole board hearing. I'm going to bring in our legal analyst guest to help me go through these, Randolph Rice and Melba Pearson. Let's take a listen to a portion. This is from when Erik was speaking, and he addressed to the board why the brothers didn't spare their mother, because we know a lot of the vitriol has been with their father, Jose. They've really painted him out to be the monster. They're claiming that he is the abuser. But many people have questions about Mom, Kitty Menendez. Well, why was she shot and then shot again after they reloaded? Let's listen to Erik's explanation.
My brother had gone to my mom, this was a few years before, and said, leave Dad, we'll leave with you. We'll go back to New Jersey. And my mom said, I'm never leaving your father. Your father is a great man, and I'm his wife, and that's who I am. Step by step, my mother had shown that she was united with my dad, but I still didn't believe she knew. And when I found out that she knew, I no longer saw him and her as different. They were different. She was his victim. I should have known that. I should have separated it in my mind. But at that night, I saw them as one person.
Melba Pearson, what did you think of his explanation?
Yeah, it's a tough one, Julie, because when you think about the greater parameters around domestic violence, if what they're saying is true and the father was abusive to both them and the mother, it is not abnormal for a woman in that situation, or a person in that situation, to be like, listen, this is who I'm with. It doesn't matter. Yes, I'm being abused, but I'm going to take it because this is my husband. This is my partner. I need to stand by them. So that kind of denial is not unusual. And sadly, in the criminal justice system, we have seen many instances where the parent was aware that the other parent was abusing the children and turned a blind eye to it. So what they're saying is not far-fetched. is that a justification for what they did? Separate discussion.
Melba, a great insight you're sharing. So let's listen to Lyle now. This is why he says he didn't report the alleged abuse that he says came from his mother.
I didn't see it as abuse, really. I just saw it as something special between my mother and I. And so I don't like to talk about it that way. And so I don't like to.
But then you wrote about it pretty extensively. And you talked about how it was getting more and more sexual. So that sounds like sexual abuse, no?
Today I see it as sexual abuse, but I was 13. I felt like I was consenting.
Randolph, what do you think about what Lyle shared there?
Well, I may get a little pushback from this, but I think everything that they say is for their benefit and their benefit only. I believe from the very beginning that they are telling lies upon lies upon lies, and I just don't know how they keep covering themselves, and they really don't a lot of times. They seem to contradict themselves. So I think they're just making this story up because they don't have their mom and dad there to refute what they're saying, and I just don't believe them. I think they're just doing this for their own benefit.
Right. I'm in agreement with you, Randolph. You're not going to be the cheese that stands alone. I'm in agreement with you. I've been saying it many times on the program, and if you ask the DA's office, they'll say it too. I mean, I remember when Nathan Hochman, went through all of the different events for people going way back in time, all of the different, ways that they were suborning perjury and manufacturing lies about this, trying to get other friends to lie and say they were abused. So it really is hard to know where the truth begins, where the lies begin. It's tough, having not been there. And so, of course, we are all advocates for victims, and all the time on this show we talk about how there's no place for any kind of sexual abuse in America. Here, though, this is I agree with you, a grain of salt kind of situation, those comments, and the board, the board kept them in. They couldn't have been that persuaded by this. And when you talk to people who were there and lived it, like DA John Lewin and now DA Nathan Hochman, who's going back and reviewing everything, you see that there were a lot of things manufactured. So we'll leave it there for now. We'll see if the brothers have any other legal tricks up their sleeves. They've got a great team, Mark Garagos, representing them. So they have really good lawyers in their pursuit of justice. Let's do this. Let's hit a quick break. Melba and Randolph are staying with us. Do the same at home, please. We're gonna hit pause, and when we come back, returning to a case in Florida, examining this guy and the psychology of his case. In that ring on his finger, off the finger. Does the ring mean a thing? We're talking about this defendant in the pregnant mistress murder trial next.
My two best friends were just murdered.
Join me for a Court TV true crime series where we take you from the crime scene to the courtroom.
Donna Adelson hates every piece of grass that Dan Marcel ever walked on.
It's something that'll haunt all of us forever.
It always seemed like he was covering or deceiving.
This was a whole different level.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands, a Court TV original series. Season premieres September 27th.
Only on Court TV.
Welcome back. Now for what's tipping the scales in the pregnant mistress murder trial. Testimony set to resume soon in Florida. We have our cameras ready to go. The defendant is Jose Soto-Escalera. This guy's accused of murdering his mistress. There she is, a beautiful young lady, 23-year-old Tanya Wise. And she was pregnant with a child that they created together, 8 months pregnant. She was getting ready to deliver that little baby boy named Josiah. Now, Mr. Soto-Escalera was married to someone else at the time of the murder, a married man and a father of his own children with his wife. This is a live look at the courtroom here. I am seeing him all ready to go. Now, prosecutors painted this guy out as a person who just was up against the wall, felt that he had no choice but to kill his mistress or else be found out. And his whole family life that he worked for all those years would be wrecked, right? Well, his defense team started blaming the victim, blaming Tanya Wise, saying that this wasn't him, that she had DNA of many other people on her body because she was a dancer and an escort. She was in contact with lots of unsavory characters. So that was the defense position. Well, some testimony from Tanya Wise's mother really hit home with the jury when she described her daughter as a mom who was just trying to take care of her son.
She was going to go get drinks for her son, for school, for his lunch.
Okay.
That's the purpose she left the house, because she had problems walking and everything because of her pregnancy. So she left just to get the drinks.
Okay. And was that the last time you ever saw your daughter, Tanya?
Yeah, by the door, yes.
Now, we couldn't help but notice some optics. You know, we talk about this with every trial, my friends. This guy's no different than any other defendant. We always examine the appearance. And look at this. He's wearing a wedding ring in the courtroom. And yesterday he had the ring on, and then for a time it was off. It was off of his hand. We thought perhaps somebody might have heard the discussion we were having. The guest and I were saying, does it look disingenuous, you know, to have a ring on if he did in fact step out on his family? And then the ring came back on. So then we started saying in our newsroom, does the ring mean a thing here? Let's bring in our guest and talk about this. She's a psychotherapist and the CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey, on the show today. Good morning, Dr. Janie. Let's start with the ring and the optics. Your thoughts on it being on, then coming off, and then being put back on again?
Oh, good morning, Julie. I have lots of thoughts, but you know, what I would say is that the decision to wear or remove a wedding ring is never accidental, right? So to me, it was a calculated choice, probably by his team. And when we think about, he's being charged with murdering his pregnant mistress. So when he's choosing to wear this wedding ring, it's going to send multiple messages to the jury. And I think that's exactly what they're trying to do. It could just make him a human. You know, he's a family man, someone with commitments and responsibilities. Or, you know, it can also be intended to garner like sympathy, suggesting he's a devoted husband who made a mistake rather than a predator. But I think this strategy can actually backfire, in my opinion, Julie, because it highlights the betrayal, not just of his wife, but his values and his moral obligation. So to me, from a jury perspective, that ring can become a symbol of deception. Every time the jurors look at it, they're reminded that this is someone capable of living a double life.
Oh, that's great insight, Dr. Janie. Thank you. We would love to have you analyze some of the relationship dynamics in this one, please. So it seems that it's pretty clear there was an affair going on with this defendant and the victim. The jury is hearing about that, yet they're seeing the ring. They're hearing also about this woman being much younger than him, 23 years old, sadly, at the time she was killed. What do those dynamics about an older married man with kids say to you about going after a younger woman, you know, who was working as an exotic dancer and escort?
Well, Julie, unfortunately, this dynamic is common, especially in cases like this, and it reveals to me several concerning patterns, right? So first, there is a power imbalance. When you think about age and experience and potentially financial resources or professional status, it's not an equal relationship, right? And we see this all the time. And when we think about it from a psychological perspective in particular, it's compartmentalization when you look at these affair relationships, especially when there's a power dynamic that is not equal, right? The ability to separate your different aspects of your life so that would otherwise have a moral conflict, I should say. They don't surface. The married man often can view the younger woman as existing in his separate reality from his real life with his family. And this is where he gets to escape. So to me, it could be very common in these dynamics when we see older married men who have the lack of boundaries that can go after a younger female or younger woman because there is a power imbalance.
Dr. Janie Lacey, I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much for this. This is really, really helpful as we're getting ready for court to start. Any second, we see the defendant there. Dr. Janie, we'll see you back very soon on opening statements. That is all for this episode. Friends, share it. Go to courttv.com. You can watch it again.